Welcome to Ben Shatliff on Sunday. It's Sunday, February 26, 2023. During Lent, we're led by the Spirit into the mystery of Jesus' sojourn in the desert. By the solemn 40 days of Lent, the Church unites itself to the mystery of Jesus in the desert. Isn't it amazing to ponder that in a mystical way? Through our own struggles and temptations, we have some share in Jesus' testing in the desert. The story of Jesus' temptations appear in all three synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but not John. Each of the evangelists is clear that Jesus was tempted by Satan. The name Satan means adversary. In the book of Job, we're given a vivid picture of Satan in God's heavenly court, where he has the role of accuser or prosecutor. The scriptures identify Satan as the serpent in the Garden of Eden, who tempted Adam and Eve, and therefore as the origin of sin and temptation, original sin. When the scriptures and tradition make clear is that humankind has a mortal enemy who, although a finite being created by God, is in a desperate struggle to overthrow God's reign, usurp his lordship, and lead his creation into darkness and death. How interesting that when we renew our baptismal vows over Easter, we're invited to reject Satan and all his empty promises. We're constantly being tempted in many and varied ways, but temptation isn't a sin. It doesn't become one until we succumb. Jesus didn't succumb, and because he was tempted, he can identify with the suffering we endure when we're tempted. Perhaps our religious formation put the accent on resisting sexual sin and temptation is often perceived in these terms. However, we're tempted in many and varied ways to gossip, spite, arrogance, resentment, and anger, and so on. Lent, then, is a time of spiritual combat, and every soldier knows the dictum, knows the enemy. The devil is finite, merely a creature who can be defeated. Our struggle then isn't against flesh and blood, but against the devil and his spiritual forces. Lord, armed with truth, righteousness, and readiness to proclaim the gospel, I say with confidence, get behind me, Satan. Of course, I'd not read any of this before I just read it just now. And quite often when I'm reading these, that is a very, very powerful piece of word that from the Bible alive. And very soon, as we get to Easter, we won't be reading from these anymore. We're going to be making some changes on Ben Shatliff on Sunday, but these are very, very powerful, and it certainly makes you think when you read some of the things which are on there. I've just gone straight into it today without saying what's coming up on the programme. I'm not going to make any comments on what I've just read there. And I could do, but some might think it could be a little bit controversial because it kind of makes you think, well, is something really a sin after all, or is it not? But it's certainly, definitely, it makes you ponder, which is what Jesus did in the desert in the beginning, at the start of Lent, and certainly pondering, and then certainly makes you think. But it all starts and ends then with the devil, in terms of the fact that the devil tempted Jesus in the desert during Lent, start of Lent, and we all reject the devil, as we should do, on Easter Saturday at the Easter Vigil, and of course on Easter Sunday as well, depending which Mass that you go to. So if you go to the Easter Vigil, which is always on Easter Saturday, which is one of my favourite Masses of the year, then we renew our baptism So depending, that's what I'm saying, depending which mass is at Easter, either Easter Saturday or Easter Sunday. I'm going to go straight on to the news now. And there's been some developments this morning which have developed over the last few hours. And Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, could be on the verge, and we'll know more within the next 24, possibly 48 hours, depending how quick this is done, of sorting out a deal, a Brexit deal for Northern Ireland. Now, some are accusing it of being a soft Brexit, but the fact is, as someone who voted to remain and still wishes we had remain, I'm not going to go into all that now. I'm just going to say, if they can get something done that sorts everything out, then that is good. Because earlier this week, there was a police officer who was shot in Northern Ireland. Very, very tragic indeed. And all thoughts and prayers are with that police officer. And I remember growing up in the 1980s and 1990s, and of course, right here in Manchester itself, when the tensions with the IRA and bombs that were going off, trouble in Northern Ireland, I really hope that those days are long since gone from us. I remember the historic Good Friday Agreement in 1998. Our former Prime Minister Tony Blair was involved, and of course Bill Clinton, the former President of the United States, but also remembering somebody else who sat there no longer with us that was very much involved in that, and that of course was Mo Mowlam. And of course there were people from Sinn Féin like the late Paddy McGuinness. There's also Jerry Adams as well, and people who during the times had been arguings and all kinds of various different stuff, massive tensions, but people got together for that Good Friday Agreement. And let's hope that those tensions can be gone completely. And the tragedy that happened this week, let's hope there's nothing more of anything like that, and Northern Ireland can have the peace that it rightly deserves. Now, Dominic Raab has been interviewed this morning, and he said that he will resign as Deputy Prime Minister and his other roles if he is found guilty of bullying. In Italy, at least 45 migrants have died after a boat that they were on capsized that was just off Italy. Elton John and Dolly Parton were among celebrities to pay tribute to Dame Olivia Newton-John at a state memorial service in Melbourne, marked by thousands for the late actress and singer. And you know something, saying here that she passed away in August of last year, I didn't realise it was so long. I was thinking it was just fairly more recent. It shows how time goes very, very quick. And the body of the missing hill walker Kyle Sandberg and his dog have been found in Glencoe, the police confirmed. Thoughts and prayers are still, of course, with the people of Turkey and Syria, where there has been more earthquakes this week. And it's still only 3 weeks tomorrow since the initial powerful earthquake and all these aftershocks that keep happening, but then another earthquake as well. So all thoughts and of course aid and everything to be given to the people there. Friday marked a full year since Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine on a full-scale invasion. On Friday, our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak led the country for a 1-minute silence. The Ukrainian national anthem was played afterwards, and there have been many, many events taking place, not just here in Manchester and the Northwest, but around the United Kingdom. to pay tribute to all the people who have been killed, but also to show our solidarity with the people of Ukraine, to show that we are with the people of Ukraine forever, not just while what's going on now, but also to show that solidarity as the country, when hopefully very, very soon, when that peace and that freedom comes back to Ukraine, we want to show the people that we are there always to make sure that that country can rebuild itself, and also to make sure that this aggression never ever happens again. And as I've said many, many times before, you can rebuild a building, you can rebuild a country, but what you cannot do, and never would be able to do, never can do, is replace the many, many thousands of lives of Ukrainian people who, as a result of the actions of Vladimir Putin, have been murdered. Not just over the last 12 months, but since 2014. And at this point, we'll have a moment of silence here on Ben Shatliff on Sunday for the people of Ukraine. And we pray for peace, stability, and freedom. Thank you. Now, the latest news from Ukraine, which I'm just getting here, which I'm looking here on the iPad. Algeria to reopen its embassy in Kyiv after 1 year of closure. Now, there have been no developments for months in a discussion of possible NATO security guarantees for Ukraine. A government spokesperson has said at a recent meeting of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron with Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky, the issue played no role at all. The spokesperson said this is from the German government. The statement comes after a recent report by the Wall Street Journal that some of NATO's biggest European members are floating a defence pact with Ukraine. The German defence minister has reacted today with scepticism to a Chinese ceasefire proposal for a war in Ukraine. When I hear reports, I don't know whether they are true, according to which China may be planning to supply kamikaze drones to Russia while at the same time presenting a peace plan, then I suggest we judge China by its actions and not its words. Boris Pistorius told public broadcaster Deutschlandfunk in an interview. The US and Germany have previously warned China not to deliver weapons to Russia. According to recent reports, Beijing and Moscow are said to be negotiating the purchase of 100 strike drones, which could be delivered as soon as April. The hundreds of inmates gathered in a Russian prison yard were given no choice. After 6 months, you go home and receive a pardon. There are no options to return to prison. You have 5 minutes to decide. And this is prisoners who were violent prisoners who were fighting for the Wagner group in Ukraine. So Russian, very, very, very dangerous criminals who are now fighting for the Wagner group in Ukraine. You all know my views, and what I just want to share with you all now is just some pictures, because on Facebook, of course, you can get memories, and some memories here from 2022, just a year ago today, when it was our very first Manchester stands with Ukraine rally. This was these here were, just some of the pictures I was stood with. I was stood with people from Hong Kong. I hope everybody can clearly see this. And these are some pictures that were taken. This was exactly 1 year ago today, and of course you can understand why I'm wearing blue with a yellow tie today. Now, what I also want to just point out, just to show everybody as well, is because yesterday at our march and rally, which took place here in Manchester, I went on 2 marches. One which was from the Ukrainian Cultural Centre, which went from there right into the centre of Manchester to the Gardens. We walked with the school children who had finished school at the Ukrainian Centre every Sunday. So we walked with the school children into Manchester, and then everybody got together and then walked around Manchester city centre, and then we had our main rally between 3 and what it was after 4 at Piccadilly Gardens. Now I want to show you all something, because I tried to do some Facebook Lives yesterday. I was able to do when I was on the walk, the original march. On both marches I was able to do so. But I just want to show you something here, because this is what was happening at the Manchester rally. I just want to give you an indication as to how many people were actually there. I can't give the full indication, of course, but just look at this.
Hey, Manchester, what do you say? Putin hands off Ukraine! Hey, Manchester!
So, massive amounts of people. There was loads of people that initially attended the rally when this first happened a year ago. But as you can see from here now, the amounts of people that were there yesterday. And of course, everybody's thoughts, of course, with the people of Ukraine, both in Ukraine itself, and of course, the wonderful people who've come over here to the United Kingdom. And despite the tragedy of what's been happening, I've got to know quite a lot of people who have real classy to his family, and got to know an awful lot of people over the last 12 months, and that family friendship will continue forever. There's no ifs about that whatsoever. And this evening I'll be attending a special service at Manchester Cathedral, which is for the people of Ukraine. That starts at 5:30 this evening. It's very hard in this present day, when I mentioned earlier on about the tensions, and I grew up in Northern Ireland, and of course you think about what happened during the Second World War, and there are so many things, and you think to yourself, you hoped that tyranny was all in the past, and then sadly you get what's happening when somebody like Vladimir Putin does what he does. And it's not just Vladimir Putin, there's other aggressors throughout the world where they cause problems to people. And I'll go back to 2020, and I've said this to quite a few people over recent times as well, and that is the fact that for a few weeks in March 2020, everybody looked out for each other because we couldn't be with one another during COVID. And you think, why have people not learned lessons from these things? And I was going to mention this anyway, and thank you very much indeed for reminding me, because I don't have a script or anything. I might read certain things on the iPad, but because I do not have a script, then I can sometimes go off, and afterwards I think, oh my gosh, I've not actually said certain stuff. And I want to thank the person who's just mentioned there about the death of the absolute legend here in Granada Land, the northwest of England. And I will still say Granada Land, even though it's all now ITV generic and everything else. But we were very, very fortunate here in the Granada region in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. And the reason why is because we had somebody who I think had a voice that was soothing and always welcoming. Let's just listen to this on this special tribute.
If we look inside our souls, there's light. It's a good enough day to love. The blankets, rags, and torn. Blankets, rags, and torn.
Channel 4's news program will be starting in just a few minutes' time. At 7:30 here on Granada, there's part 2 of the current adventure for the lads of Auf Wiedersehen Pet. And next tonight, Emmerdale Farm, Joe's evening ruined once again by an unexpected caller. Now, Granada, let's find out who keeps ruining Joe's evening as we visit Emmerdale Farm.
But we follow your line of inquiry.
Ruth Redford, Shake Hands Forever, continues Friday at 9 on ITV.
Next tonight, Auf Wiedersehen Pet. Glancing ahead to 9 o'clock, Edward Woodward is back in action, helping people with their problems as the equaliser. But right now, here's a gang of lads whose middle collective name is Problems, and the lads of Auf Wiedersehen Pet.
The late legend, as he was, Charles Foster, whose death was officially announced, I think it was yesterday or on Friday, but I had actually heard of this a few days before on one of the forums. Now that I go on, just speaking there of Charles Foster, I mentioned there a very soothing voice, and that is definitely as he used to be. We were very, very lucky here in the Northwest, in the Granada region, as it was then called Granada region, because we had continuity announcers who also did envision continuity. So it meant you didn't just hear their voice, but you actually got to see them. And sometimes as well, they even present Granada reports or Granada news, the late bulletins and the weekend bulletins as well at different times. And as well as the late great Charles Foster, there was also another late great Jim Pope. There was John Mackenzie, Colin Weston, there was Beverly Ashworth, Pamela Dodd. I'm just trying to think, there'll be others who I've not mentioned there, who were absolutely wonderful. They were caring as well. And as I say, that soothing voice of the late great Charles Foster was always wonderful when you're waiting for a Granada programme. And yes, Graham James. Now, Graham James also, he regularly used to present Granada reports at 1:20 after the then news at 1. I'm showing my age here, but I'm happy to show my age at certain times when I think back to how things used to be when you used to watch ITV. Well, it was Granada. Now, it's 40 years a few weeks ago since the original Good Morning Britain was launched. Now, before then, there was not morning television officially on the ITV network. There was on BBC when their breakfast time started a few years before, but I'm also aware of the fact that some other regions, Yorkshire, tried a Good Morning calendar before then. I think some others did. I don't think Granada did, but I'm also wondering whether or not they actually did. So it used to open up at 9:25 in the morning with Granada. And then it was the schools programmes before it then moved to Channel 4 in 1987. But you used to get you'd get News at 1, which was presented by the late great Leonard Parkin. And then you would get Granada News, Granada Reports at 1:20, which was presented by Graham James. And he used to regularly do that. There was no variation, it was just regular. But then you've got the Envision continuity announcers, people like Charles Foster and the others who I've mentioned as well. Now, also then, as time started moving on, you used to get a whole variety of various different Australian television series. series. So this is how I then got hooked on programs. Well, initially the Sullivans, then the Young Doctors. Neighbours came around, but there was also a Country Practice, Richmond Hill, and Home and Away, the entire lot. And the thing about it was you could go here in the Granada region, the northwest, and then you could go on holiday like to Bournemouth, and then you'd see an episode of Sons and Daughters where they were well ahead, and then you would see that episode in the Granada region a couple of years later. Or you could watch an episode of Prison Cell Block Tapes. It was always on late at night, but everybody used to stay up and watch it. School children. That's what you used to say, what used to amaze when they did a stage production of the series, like the fact they said so many younger people were all there watching it. And bearing in mind, it started in this region, yes, a Country Practice, another favourite of mine. And these programs, a Prison Cell Block Cage, well, Prisoner is the official name, Cell Block Cage was added here. But that was added on, that started here in the Granada region in 1988, when it had actually already finished in Australia in 1986. And the Young Doctor started here in the Granada region in 1983 and had already finished in Australia. So the Sullivans started, I think it was about 77 or 78 here, across the regions on ITV, but then it was only shown either twice or once a week, and then it started splitting out where regions would show different episodes and stuff like that. What I'm going to do, because I've gone off track, but this is all we've obviously discussing about the fact of remembering the late great Charles Foster, but what I will do, because I do have an interest in the Australian soaps, I'm going to do a very special episode of Ben Shatliff on Sunday. Very soon, it could be after Easter, we'll just see what the thing is, and we'll dedicate it to the wonderful Australian soaps, and I will show you some of my DVD collection as well. So, yes, I'm a traditional person with modern values, but yes. Right, so we're going to end Ben Shatliff on Sunday today. Thank you very much indeed, as usual, for the interaction from our friend Multi Clapton. Thank you very much indeed. And you remind me of stuff there if I've not already said so. So yeah, no, thank you very much indeed. So we'll do two special programs coming up very, very soon. One about Australian dramas. And you can still watch one of them because Neighbours is now on Amazon Freevee. And we'll also do one about the history of ITV Granada as well, because it's we all grow up watching stuff, and this is one of the things, because with everything which is happening, and you have like a switch off point where you then like just switch off from everything that's going on, and you'll watch something. And yes, I've been watching Hercule Poirot as well recently, David Suchet, which has been fantastic. But I enjoy those Australian soaps, so yeah, we'll do something about that coming soon as well. So if you've got any requests from something, then we'll do that. We'll have a few different ideas which are going to come up very soon. Right, that is it from this very special edition of Ben Shatliff on Sunday. I will, of course, be back next Sunday. I'm going to leave you today with a piece of music. Well, it's a song, and I just think it's an original song which is dedicated to the people of Ukraine at this terrible time. It's called "We'll Never Walk Alone." Thank you for saying take care, Ben. I wish everybody a very good week ahead. I hope everyone takes care and keeps themselves well. I'll leave you with this. There's two words I'm going to say today. Slava Ukraini. If you feel like giving up when the load
brings you down when the road is long ahead, with the darkness all around. Hold tight, stay strong. I am by your side. There are corners to be turned. There are bridges to be crossed. In life, the best comes after the hardest climb. You are beautiful and wonderful in your own special way. You are magical and dependable and bright enough the day. So sail this ship forward as the waves crash around us. With you by my side, we'll never walk alone. We'll walk this road together, and we'll brave the storms forever. With your hand in mine, we'll never walk alone. When the whistle hope inside, just the absence of the light. Be strong, darkest before the dawn. And the sun will rise and the birds will sing. Start a brand new day. And the pages turn and the lessons learned. The love to light the way. Sail the ship forward as the waves crash around us. With you by my side, we'll never walk alone. And we'll walk this road together, and we'll brave the storms forever. With your hand in mine, we'll never walk alone. Don't give up, you're stronger than no. You and I won't give up on the promises as waves crash around us. With you by my side, we'll never walk alone. And we'll walk this road together, and we'll brave the storms forever. With your hand in mine, we'll never walk alone. Never walk.